Hello everybody, John12 back here again with another video, and today I bring you my True Detective Season 2 Episode 1 review titled The Western Book of the Dead. Now, of course, if you've not seen this episode, please go check it out because this review may contain spoilers. Now, that being said, let's get right into True Detective Season 2. Now, as you all know, True Detective, I personally thought was the definitive best TV show of 2014. I mean, like, if you go back and look at my top 5 list of best TV shows of last year, True Detective was number 1. It was so amazing. It was just a great experience. And Matthew McConaughey's character, Rusty Cole, in that series, season 1 of that series, was probably the best character he's ever played in his entire career, in my personal opinion, and it made the show amazing, and everything was awesome. Fukunaga's fucking direction, Woody Harrelson's performance, everything holds up with that season. It's just an amazing, badass season, and definitely one of the best HBO shows that's come out since, I want to say, Game of Thrones. But that being said, True Detective Season 2 came out with a lot of speculation. Tons of people were like, who's going to be a part of this new show? Because it was announced that, True Detective would serve as HBO's anthology series. So every season would follow detectives from a different county, different part of the country, and different kind of universe / storylines. It's going to be completely original every season, which I actually had a big problem with, because even though it's worked out for a lot of other great shows, like, for instance, American Horror Story, I mean, they've done a great job at making an anthology series, but True Detective Season 1 was so good that I would rather just continue to watch the experiences and stories of McConaughey and Woody's characters. I mean, they were so compelling and just amazing at what they did, and those performances they gave, once again, like the best performances they've given, in their full careers, in my personal opinion. But then again, True Detective Season 2, I had some hopes for it. They obviously started casting. They brought in Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams, Taylor Kitsch, and of course Vince Vaughn. And a lot of people were speculating, like, are they going to be any good? Because let's be honest, they're not the best actors in the world. And obviously, as of now, they've kind of not really done that many great projects. But for me, I thought, you know what, it'll be all right, because Colin Farrell, even though he's not my favorite actor, I think he'll be decent. Rachel McAdams, I'm actually a huge fan of hers. I think she's awesome. The only problem I have with her and her specific career is the fact that she always kind of plays the same character in every movie she does. But that being said, I didn't really have any, real gripes with her in this show. And Taylor Kitsch, I know a lot of people give him shit from, those leading, role characters he played, like whether it be from Battleship or John Carter. A lot of people like to give him shit, but for me, I think he's a decent actor. And I like to consider Taylor Kitsch, he's like the Val Kilmer of today's generation. Like, he's this generation's Val Kilmer. Like, he's alright when it comes to leading roles, but he's just better as the character actor, or the minor characters. He's better at that kind of platform. So for me, I was like, okay, whatever. And of course, Vince Vaughn, which is the real wild card. Like, will he be good? Because obviously he's been in a lot of stinkers as of late, and he's really hasn't, blown out as much as hoped. But for me, I thought it would be okay, because, Vince Vaughn, even though he does a lot of comedic roles, he kills with his dramatic roles. Kind of like, Adam Sandler. Like, Adam Sandler, we give him shit for his comedies, especially as of late, because they've become very repetitive. But, when you give the guy a good script, a good story, and a fucking interesting character that's, apart from comedy and more towards the dramatic, he fucking kills. And the same thing goes for Vince Vaughn. You go back and watch his dramatic roles, he freaking kills it, and that's what I was kind of hoping for. So that was my personal speculation and anticipation going in. Now, for this specific episode, we followed the characters and their day-to-day lives and what they're currently living in. Colin Farrell's character, Detective Ray, is kind of a deadbeat dad. He's, very depressed. He drinks a lot. He's an alcoholic. He does a lot of off-the-cuff kind of crazy shit on his free time, and he's just a wild card. Rachel McAdams is another detective, Detective Annie, and she's kind of the pissed-off, super feministic kind of chick who's just pissed off at the world and specifically at men. That's kind of like her role. Taylor Kitsch plays this, I guess, highway patrol officer who has a dark past that we don't really know the full extent of, and he's just kind of pissy. And then you have Vince Vaughn, who plays a entrepreneur, super billionaire slash, criminal boss guys, which we don't know the full extent of how powerful he is yet. So that's kind of like the characteristics of each actor. And essentially the disappearance of a specific city manager that destroys, I guess, the plans of every single character in the show. And now at the end, they have to come together to investigate the murder behind this city manager and the hijinks that follows in the following season. And that's essentially the plot. For me personally, as much as I really wanted to sit here and just rave about the show and be like, yeah, it was awesome and it was badass and it was better than season 1, I can't do that. It just was not good. I don't know. It's very hard to say because after Game of Thrones ended, this is HBO's time to really give us new content, which they did. They gave us True Detective, they gave us Ballers, and they gave us The Brink, which are the newest HBO series, seeing as how Game of Thrones and all that other stuff has already come to its end. And I thought, well, now that Game of Thrones is done and I have no life, because, when Game of Thrones is off, it's kind of like, is there a point in living? True Detective, I thought, would be the next best thing. And it was not. It sadly was very boring. The episode was just jarring, and I don't know, there was just so many things weird in comparison to the first episode of the last season. Like, I understand the writer and creator going into season 2 wanted to make a different kind of show with this season. He wanted to make the audience realize that this is not, True Detective season 1. This is an entire different show, just so happens to be from the same creator and comes from the same TV show. That's essentially the thing. It may have the name True Detective, it may have the HBO, markings, and it may have the same writer and creator, but it's not the same show. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's way too many main characters, and the director did not come back, which was the worst thing that could have happened. Because for me, Cary Fukunaga was the shit. He fucking killed it with those 8 episodes. Those 8 episodes he directed were amazing, and he did not come back to direct season 2, which I thought was the biggest downfall of the season. And I know he wants to go off and do movies, and he's been signed on to do different types of projects. He's kind of like James Wan. He's fucking signing on for a whole bunch of shit. I get it, but come back and do this. This is what got you on the map. This is what really, freaking showed, the world your amazing directing. Why not come back to do that? But whatever. And the second thing, the too many main characters. The great thing about season 1 of True Detective is that you don't have a lot of main characters. It's essentially just the 3 main characters, which is Matthew McConaughey, who's the lead. You have Woody Harrelson, who is his right-hand man, his freaking, his sidekick, if you will, and he has his own, basic crazy story, and of course his wife, Michelle Monaghan, who freaking was awesome. And that was it. That was it. There was no other main character that overshadowed the story of another main character, which is what happens with this first episode. There's so many main stories going on, it gets very confusing to follow each one. You have, first you're introduced to Colin Farrell's character, and you find out that, spoilers, he lost his wife in an undisclosed way that's really dramatic and depressing, and he comes and he starts working with Vince Vaughn, and he's a dirty cop, and he's a deadbeat dad, and then you go into Rachel McAdams, and then you go to Taylor Kitsch, and then you go to Vince Vaughn, and then it goes back and forth. It just gets very confusing to follow each story, and maybe that's because I'm a dum-dum or whatever, but for me personally, I followed True Detective Season 1 quite easy, and that was a pretty complex show. Season 2 is so confusing, and it's just very difficult to follow. It's just not very entertaining, when you can't really understand the story that you're watching, which is the downfall of the episode. And on top of that, the directing was not as good. Now, once again, Fukunaga did not come back, and they brought in some other directors to direct the new season, but I don't think they did a great job at directing. I mean, it just does not feel like the same visuals. You know, it just like, and I say this about every kind of project. Just because the director leaves and it's still the same people doesn't mean it's the same show. The director, every director can't imitate another director's style. They have to have their own kind of thing. And Fukunaga had his own thing, and this director has his other kind of thing going on. It just does not match. And when you compare the two styles, it doesn't go together. And for me personally, it just wasn't great for me. I just did not like this episode. I personally thought it was very boring. The pacing went too far. It was just very long, boring, confusing, difficult to understand, and there was way too many stories going on, and there's way too many main characters. They should have just made it 2 characters like the last season, maybe a third, and that would be it. Like if this episode featured only like Colin Farrell and Rachel McAdams characters, I would have been awesome, because this episode, the best thing about it is the performances that these actors give. That's the best thing you get out of this episode. Colin Farrell's character, his performance, awesome. He's freaking great. Rachel McAdams, she's like the best part of this episode. Freaking Taylor Kitsch, he does a decent job. I will admit, he didn't do an amazing job, but I think he did a decent job. And Vince Vaughn, I thought he was awesome. Even though I completely don't understand what he does, I think it was kind of awesome what he did. And that was pretty much it. The performances is the backbone of this episode, and I'm guessing the overall season. Everything else is kind of crappy, boring, unentertaining, and very confusing to me. So at the end of the day, I have to give it a good 5 out of 10. Maybe even a 5.5 out of 10 on a good day. But for me personally, I was not a big fan of this episode. I personally felt it wasn't as up to par of season 1, which I knew was going to happen, but I had hopes. And at the end of the day, it's just, can we just get Matthew McConaughey back? I'm just saying, just bring him back to do season 2. I just want to see Rust Cole again. It's just not the same. But at the end of the day, I will be watching season 2. I will be seeing it to the end, and I more than likely will end up reviewing the finale of season 2. But overall, I was not a huge fan of this episode. I did not care for the majority of it, and the only best thing that came out of this episode was the performances of the actors. So hopefully by the second episode or the third episode, this season starts to really kick up a notch. But like this is the best way I can put it to all the True Detective fans out there. If you like True Detective season 1, only forward to watch Colin Farrell's moments. His moments are the best part of the episode. Just watch his. You can watch the others if you want, but just watch his. And the episode doesn't really start to kick off until the last moment of the freaking episode. Like that one moment, spoilers, when they find the dead body and they're all together and like they're gonna have to freaking team up like Marvel's Avengers style to freaking find out who the heck this happened, why this happened or whatever. That's when the episode really starts to kick off. And unfortunately, it's the last freaking few minutes of the freaking episode. So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. Watch the episode as you will. But overall, I did not like it. I did not enjoy it. I will be watching Season 2 to see if it picks up. And of course, I will be more than likely reviewing the finale. But this has been my personal thoughts on Season 2 of True Detective. Episode 1, pretty much a bore fest. So let me know what you think. In the comments below, let me know what you personally thought about True Detective Season 2, Episode 1. I was not a huge fan of it, but let me know what you personally thought. And of course, let me know what you personally thought about the story, the new direction style, the new writing style, the new characters, the actors they chose, and their performances. Let me know overall in the comments below. Subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already. Hope you guys enjoyed, and this has been John 12.